OSPtv, we are back live in studio, episode 12. OG, welcome back, sir. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you as always.
Thank you. It's going to be a fun episode today.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, we got a lot of talk to talk. We got the man to talk the talk. Our special guest for episode 12. If you don't know him, now you know him. I'm not sure what rock you lived under. He's the mastermind, the behind the scenes, the flashy dressing, best sunglasses in the industry, best suits, best talker, best matchmaker. Do I need to go on and on? The pleasure of working with him on several events and consider a personal friend, and more so somebody that I truly respect and value in the game, has put on some of the biggest events in history. If you heard of the name of Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather versus Oscar De La Hoya, Floyd Mayweather versus Shane Mosley, Floyd Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao. This gentleman was behind the scenes, the personal advisor and friend of Floyd Mayweather, and the current CEO and founder of Mayweather Promotions. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Mr. Leonard Ellerbe. Welcome to OSPtv, Leonard. Good to have you, brother.
Thank you for this great welcoming. It's glad to be back. Again, everything what you said, it's been a terrific journey, and I can't say enough that I've had a lot of success over the years, but I didn't do it by myself. I've had a great team behind me, and again, I'm so happy to call you a friend, a personal friend.
Thank you. Likewise. OG, you've been following boxing for quite a while. You're a big fight fan. What are some of your favorite Mayweather Promotions events?
I mean, one of my favorites that comes to mind with Leonard is he was always the guy with the nice suits on.
Woo!
Growing up.
Man, does he?
I mean, where do you get those things from? What's your favorite go-to?
Tom Ford.
There you go. You have it, ladies and gentlemen. Leonard gets them from Tom Ford.
Tom Ford.
There we go.
Woo. Leonard shows up to the events, Dustin, in a different car every single time. So he rolls with that money. Sometimes it's a Lamborghini. Sometimes it's a Ferrari. Sometimes it's, he's been driven around. You never know where Leonard is because it's a different car every time. It's probably the car matches the sunglasses.
When are you going to come into an event with a chopper? Just land it right on the roof.
That might be the next. Well, maybe. Why don't we talk about the next one?
That might happen on December 5th.
Oh, well, damn. Since you opened it up, OG, this fight December 5th, what's happening?
I do. It's been a couple years kind of in the rumblings or makings, yeah?
Well, listen, here's my issue, Leonard. This is my problem. I value you, and I see you as a mastermind matchmaker. I see you as a guy that puts on some phenomenal fights, that takes care of his fighters. Now, both of these fighters are under your banner. And we're talking about Gervonta Tank Davis, and we're talking about Rolando Romero, or Rolly Romero, and they're both under the Mayweather Promotions banner, and with under the guidance of Al Heyman and whatnot, and the whole team. So they're in-house guys. My question is, how could you feed your guy to a lion? And before you answer that, I'm talking about how could you feed Tank Davis to Rolly Romero? Because Rolly's gonna knock him out. That's the word on the street.
Well, the beauty of that thing is that when you have two guys who are tremendous punchers, and in Tank Davis' case, Tank is a guy that, the fans have gravitated to. He's been the guy that's traveled from the UK to LA to New York to Baltimore to Atlanta. And every place that he has fought at, he sold every event out. Tank Davis is the most exciting fighter in the entire sport because when he comes to fight, he's looking to knock guys out. Right. Okay. And you got Rolly Romero. He's a guy that has been bugging me. He's been bugging Floyd for the last couple years. He's wanted to fight nobody else other than Tank Davis. I can recall an instance where he was at like 9 fights, and he was like, he calls me boss. He's like, boss, I want Tank Davis. And I'm like, bro, why you want to fight Tank? He said, because I'm going to knock him the F out. Oh, my God. And I'm like, well, that's a tremendous task, Rolly. Be patient, continue to do what you need to do. And in his case, everybody we put in front of him, he passes, and he passes with flying colors.
Sure.
He's a tremendous puncher for himself. He's probably one of the biggest lightweights in the entire sport. Tank has never faced a puncher like him. So it's going to be a tremendous fight on December 5th. And I can guarantee you this fight will end in a knockout.
Well, I think that's one thing I totally agree with you on. Now, I'm privy to some inside information, and a lot of people and a lot of critics, and I'm sure you've heard it, are saying this is going to be a one-sided ass whooping. Why would Tank Davis? Why would Rolly Romero? Why would he fight a guy like Tank Davis? But if you listen on the inside of boxing, and that's where all of the upsets happen, you're talking about Rolly's team is saying you're going to witness the biggest shock. Actually, I will respectfully disagree. Yeah, the second biggest shock, because Caleb Plant's going to knock out Canelo Alvarez. I said knock out. Mark my words. He's going to take him to deep water, and he's going to frustrate him, and that's going to be an upset. But then Rolando Romero, from what I understand, is going to upset Tank Davis. What do you think about that, Leonard?
Well, he's definitely got the opportunity to do that. Tank, again, he's not only a tremendous puncher, he's also an excellent boxer. What I see in this fight, I see both guys having the ability to bring out the best in each other. This fight right here is a fight which is very rare that you see this, that two guys who actually despise each other.
Right.
These guys really, really, really hate each other. There was an instance, a couple years ago at the Mikey Garcia, Earl Spence fight, where these guys almost fought at ringside. We had to separate them two, and they were looking to get it on right there.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a phenomenal fight. Now I got a little surprise here. Johnny, can you bring on Coach Larry Wade, please, who is the strength and conditioning coach, for Rolando Romero. Go ahead and bring on Coach Wade, because Coach Wade I've been talking to, and Coach Wade is saying, and me and Coach Wade go back and forth. I said, Larry, are you sure you know what you're getting yourself into? And he said, I'm telling you, this kid punch. He goes, you ever seen this kid punch? I said, well, I've seen him in the gym spar, and I've seen him, put it on some guys, and some guys that have, names in that division, and I've seen him, thump these guys. But I can't put him up against a guy like Gervonta Tank Davis. And Coach Larry Wade will tell you,
he was very adamant.
Very adamant. But he wasn't just confident. It was like him telling you that today is today. It was black and white. I'm telling you. Actually, we were in camp with Caleb Plant last weekend, and Caleb goes, Amir, what do you think of the fight? I go, come on, man. I think Tank's going to steamroll him. And Larry got so upset. He goes, you don't know that. He goes, how do you know that? And I'm like, well, Larry, calm down. The guy's about to fight the biggest fight in his life. I'm talking about Caleb. I go, you don't need to be, yelling at him like that. And he's like, no, why is everybody thinking that Tank's going to, why? Because he got a bigger name? Because he's got more fights? I know this puts you in a bad situation, Leonard. You got any predictions for the fight?
The fight will end in a knockout.
Can you indicate which fighter will get the knockout?
The fight's going to end in a knockout. I can guarantee you that.
I think it's going to end in a knockout, and I think it's going to end in a knockout within 8 rounds. I think it's going to be a very exciting.
I can agree with you on that. I can agree with you on that.
I think they're going to, neither guy's going to back down, because they both have that mentality where if I take a step back, I've lost. And I think the fight's going to be in the center. You can fight in the phone booth this fight. I think it's going to be just a rock'em sock'em fight, and it's going to be a matter of, who's going to outgrit who. And it'll be interesting to see.
This fight reminds me so much, and not comparing the fighters to Hager versus Hearns. This will be that kind of fight. I guarantee you that from the opening bell, there's been so much trash talk, especially from Rolly's standpoint. He's talked that talk, so he has the opportunity on December the 5th to step up there and prove to the world that he's just not only about this talk, he's going to walk that walk.
You're right. Wade is training Sean Porter currently. He can't step away. Sean Porter getting ready for the big fight against Terrence Crawford. That's another massive
It's just
fight.
one after another right now.
Yeah, those are big fights, man. 3 back-to-back. It's going to be a phenomenal fight. You picked a huge venue, Leonard. You picked a great venue. You picked 2 great fighters. They're in-house fighters. They both talk the talk. I'd like to know, and I asked Wade the same thing, is who gave Rolly the idea of wearing the coat outside? What?
Man, I was just as shocked as everybody else was. But Rolly's quite the character, and that got a lot of conversation going about how he came at the press conference. And again, Rolly don't care nothing about what anybody thinks. He got his mind focused on one thing only. And he pulled me aside when we were at Staples Center for the press conference. And he looked me in my eyes and he said, "Boss, I promise you I'm knocking Tank the F out."
I mean, were you the one that gave him the fashion advice to wear that coat without a shirt? He didn't even have a shirt on.
I can assure you, I didn't have nothing to do with that one.
Let's switch gears. Let's move on. And I really want to touch on this, Leonard, because it was phenomenal. I mean, what you guys did, and I say you guys because it was a team, what you guys did with Floyd Mayweather, and he really reinvented boxing. He brought boxing to a whole different light, financially, pay-per-view wise, eyeballs on the sport, business wise, matchup wise. You know, people started using the word A side, B side from what Floyd said. People started using terms like easy work from what Floyd said. People started using the word perfecting my craft because of what Floyd said. He really tremendously is a trendsetter in the sport. And having that team behind him, even the TMT brand, I see you sporting it, everything that he did surpassed boxing in a sport. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that because he's always looked at it like that he was going to be the biggest name in the entire sport. And he's been thinking that way ever since he was a teenager. Mm-hmm. And when he turned pro, he was telling me things like, even though he was at 130 pounds, he was talking then about fighting Oscar De La Hoya. You know, and Oscar was at that time, probably at 40 pounds.
Yeah.
He's really at 35, 40 pounds. He had already had his sights on the bigger names, and Oscar was the biggest name at that particular time in the sport, you know. And it was just a matter of just time before he got his opportunity, because he's always been of the mindset that he's going to put in the work. He was going to outwork the competition while the competition was sleeping. He was going to be working. And that's just kind of been the mindset from day one. You know, he was especially early on in his career, he was doing 3-a-days, and he lived, ate, slept, and drank boxing. And that's what it was, you know. And his motto always was that the less you get hit, the longer you're gonna last in the sport. And we've all found that so true. You know, he was fighting well over 20 years, and he was able to walk away from the sport professionally with all his faculties and a bankroll.
Yep.
You know, so he accomplished everything that he ever wanted in the sport times 10. You know, records that I think that will never be broken, in my opinion. And his legacy will live on forever.
Leonard, let me ask you something. Floyd, I know that his mindset was always dreaming big and looking big and accomplishing all of these big feats. Do you think he ever envisioned that in a half hour he'd make $250 million?
To be honest, Amir, he's talked about that. He really, really has. And it's amazing how he had that vision. And he always talked about being the first fighter to ever make $100 million.
Right.
He talked about that, I mean, definitely 20 years ago. He talked about that. And, you know, I kind of looked at him like, okay, like, it's nice to dream big, but everything that he dreamed, it was able to come to fruition because, again, we had a great team and he did his part. He did his part. He never cut any corners.
Yep.
And that's why, you know, with like the fighters of this generation today, you see them, you know, a lot of them, they have some of these bad habits. They drink and
yep.
You know,
you are absolutely right.
Floyd has never drank or tasted
McGregor.
alcohol a day in his life.
Yeah, no,
you know,
you're absolutely right.
He's just always been fully committed and driven to be the best in the entire sport.
There's so much to be said about that, Leonard. You never thought and you never expected that Floyd would be pulled over for a DWI, have a drug addiction, come in overweight, not be prepared for a fight. those weren't things that were synonymous with the Floyd Mayweather brand,
Man,
aura,
you couldn't
name.
say that any better.
Yeah, because he set that level of expectation, and he knew how to. I mean, it was phenomenal. The guy wasn't a college-educated guy, but what he was an absolute genius when it came to marketing. And as he got older, and as he started realizing that, when the transition, if you will, from Pretty Boy to Money Meg came, it wasn't about knockouts. It was more about the boxing. And that doesn't sell to the general person. So what he did grasp was new markets that you guys ventured into, like the Dancing with the Stars and like all of the things outside of boxing. What is that?
The WWE.
Yeah, the WWE, all of those things that brought in that fan base. And then he became public enemy number one. He took a page out of that WWE book, and people wanted to watch him lose. And he said something, before you jump in here, Dustin, that I'll always remember. He said, most people will watch to pay me lose, and some will pay to watch me win, but they'll all pay. And at the end
of the day, that is so true, man. You couldn't have said that best. I mean, I can recall a time where it was right after the De La Hoya fight, and so boxing is a niche sport, and so when you really look at it, the base of the sport, who are the diehard fans, is such a small number. And so you can consistently do that number if you're really, really good. But his sights were being much, much bigger than being a part of a niche sport. He wanted to be the biggest name in the entire sport and the biggest name in all of sports,
right.
And so I had to find ways to be creative, to think outside the box. And one of the best examples I can always remember was at the when we made the Ricky Hatton fight. Mm-hmm. And so once the deal was done, I told him, I said, Floyd, I says, I want you to be on this show. And it's a big opportunity for us. It's a lot of eyeballs out there. And I said, and it will definitely fit into where we're going and what we're trying to do, to bring more eyeballs to the sport. Also, with you fighting on pay-per-view, you're going to make ridiculous amounts of revenue. And he was like, okay. But in his mind, he was thinking that he was going to be doing this like after our fight. And I said, no, we're going to do this while you're training for Ricky Hatton. Oh, he was hot. He was like, L, why you got me doing this blank? I got my focus has got to be on the fights. I can't be doing all this other stuff. I said, Floyd, trust me. What your guarantee is right now, you're going to make a minimum of 3 times what your guarantee is. Oh boy, he was hot. Because initially with doing the Dancing with the Stars, him and Karina, they butted heads from day one. She has a dominant personality and he has a dominant personality. And Floyd is not one that likes to be told what to do.
Right.
Oh,
no kidding.
I can recall the first day of practice, he left. He just like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. This blank is too hard for me. I'm not doing this. I got to focus on my boxing. And so I had to, kind of reel him back in. I was like, Floyd, it's all going to work out. No, this is not easy. You're not a dancer. But the whole objective is to last as long as we can, to be able to be in front of the media, because the media roll every Thursday night was something. It was an incredible lineup of things we had never had access to. Name one. And so being able to be in front of those entities week in and week out, it gave him a platform to have the visibility and be in markets and to be actually in front of middle-aged white women who didn't even know who he was.
Right.
And so after 7 weeks, they fell in love with him as a dancer, and they had a lot of success. We made it like 7 weeks, and we had the opportunity every Thursday night to be in front of these amazing, amazing media entities that we would never had the opportunity to be in front of. And truly, it just established him, the beginning of him becoming a household name, because not only was he able to be in front of these middle-aged white women, but they became fans of his.
Right.
And guess what? When our pay-per-view came, they told their husbands to buy that pay-per-view.
Sure.
So maybe that's where his endeavors into the dancing business started.
Oh, most definitely. Dancing with the Stars it was our first opportunity to be able to think outside the box and to cross over in that mainstream world, again, because boxing is such a niche sport that you know other than the diehards, who's actually looking at boxing back then.
And while we're on the subject of Floyd being a pioneer, innovator, he's kind of been the one leading the way in these exhibition fights or YouTube fighters. You know, if he chooses to fight again, any names you could see out there? Maybe Jake Paul.
I don't know. We just actually had a conversation day before yesterday. Two of these kind of names came up, not saying Jake Paul, but came across my desk. And again, these opportunities are always out there because he's been the biggest name in the sport, the entire sport. And he's had the most success, definitely, as it relates to the legacy and the revenue he's been able to generate. Right. And when you actually look at it, when you actually think about it and look at it, you know, his last official fight was 2017. Okay, when you look at the entire sport as it relates to, you know, doing pay-per-view events, who's had the biggest number out there over the last 4 years?
No, there's no comparison. Even some of the, you know, the MMA cards, the UFC cards that have the top tier guys, they don't do half the numbers that he does. That's just the truth.
And the biggest fight that we've had, correct me if I'm wrong, it's been the Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder fight.
Yep.
Both of the fights.
Yeah.
And both of those fights didn't add up to the number what he just did with Logan Paul back in June.
I was just going to say to you, Leonard, and I didn't know where you were going with it, but if you took both of those fights, added them, they wouldn't be half of what he did. You know, and that was both of those fights. But aside from that, Leonard, you couldn't get into the arena for less than $1,000. So you also had a significant gate. You also had a significant, you know, ticket, a gate number, what's called, you know, for selling tickets at the door. Everything was big. I remember, Leonard, for the Pacquiao fight, they shut down the private airport because they couldn't take any more private jets. No, I'm telling you, when you drove by it, they were parking private jets on the runway. They could not.
That's a fact.
They could not. Las Vegas made over $1 billion that night because of Floyd Mayweather.
That's a fact.
Yeah, no, it was just unbelievable.
That's a fact.
And you're talking about these seats. These seats are going for 6 figures in the front row. I mean, who does that? Who does that? You know, I mean that's triple the average income of an American per year that they're paying for a half hour.
It's crazy.
Unreal. But you're speaking number of facts.
You know, what do you why we're on pay-per-view, you know, Gervonta is one of the biggest draws in boxing now. You know, a little bit different style. He's known for the knockouts. We were just talking, Floyd did this, you know, with really kind of shifting gears to being a boxer. What are the similarities you see between Gervonta and Floyd?
Actually, there aren't any similarities. Their styles are too different from in the ring and outside the ring.
Mm-hmm.
You know, obviously some of the younger guys are a lot more flashier because they've seen Floyd kind of lead the way with that. But that's kind of like the only similarities. You know, Floyd's approach and Gervonta's approach is different. I mean, Gervonta is part of this new generation where, you know, in combat sports, these fans, they gravitate to knockouts. You know what I'm saying? So Gervonta is kind of leading the way with this younger generation because he's the first of all these youngsters who are able to fight on pay-per-view, but also he's been able to have these phenomenal turnouts at the live gate where people just gravitate to him, and he's selling out every venue that he fights at because the fans love to see knockouts.
Right.
And that's exactly what he gives them.
That last Santa Cruz fight was him so back and forth until he landed that one money shot. Wow.
That was the shot of the year.
Oh, yeah, that was definitely
it
devastating.
really was.
Conor McGregor made out good with that one with the proper whiskey right in the shot.
Yeah, well, again, taking the page out of Floyd's book, knowing how to brand, how to market, and how to put all that stuff together. I mean, I remember for the Pacquiao fight, I don't know if you knew this, Leonard, but I had a sponsor come to me and they said, we're willing to pay Floyd Mayweather 7 figures for a patch on his trunks. And Floyd's team immediately shot it down. They're like, nope. I go, we're talking 7 figures. And then in my mind, I'm doing 7 times my percentage equals. I'm like, take the damn patch. And they wouldn't take it. And they wouldn't take
my God.
It was TMT.
Oh my God.
It was just, the way that he branded himself. He stuck to his guns, and
he did.
You're talking about you're not talking about the highest paid boxer. You're talking about the highest paid athlete
in the entire world.
That's just,
on a number of occasions.
Yeah,
I had gotten so many calls from some of the top athletes in the entire world from different sports. I don't want to call the names, but I had met with them privately. And they've all asked me the same question, like, how in the blank is he making all that effing money?
Yep.
We got to play 82 games. We got to play 16 games in the playoffs and training camps and all that. And we only earn a fraction of what he's making. And we have all these incredible endorsements, and we still only making a fraction of overall what this guy makes in one night.
Right. I got to ask you, in a hypothetical world, since you're clearly one of the best promoters in the world, if you could put together a YouTube fight or an exhibition, who would you like to see go at it? Who would you put together for pure entertainment purposes?
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. I don't know. It's the whole exhibition thing. I think it's a great opportunity for the right situation.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen, some of these people just try to do it and it definitely doesn't work. I think that you truly have to be a household name, and there has to be incredible interest, from the casual fans.
Correct.
To be able to have an opportunity for it to be successful, and in Floyd's case, he did, a little over 1 million homes with a YouTuber.
Right.
And, here it is, you have guys like Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder that have 2 incredible entities behind them, like Fox and ESPN. And they're promoting the heck out of their event. And they don't even come close to doing the kind of number that Floyd did with a YouTuber. It just goes to show you the incredible impact that Floyd has had in the sports world and entertainment world, to be able to go out and do something like that.
What a lot of people, Leonard, aren't realizing, and they're realizing it after they lost a tremendous amount of money, is followers don't equal buys. And a lot of people will think, and some of the promoters are, this guy has X amount of followers, which means we're going to get X amount of pay-per-view buys. And I've seen it firsthand, and I've been involved with a couple of things of that nature. But the fact is, Floyd commands a larger pay-per-view gate than any of his followers, and he's redefined that number. And I don't want to sound too biased towards Floyd, because I'm just being as objective as possible about it. But if you were to take the king or the pioneer of the YouTube boxing and you put him in with the king of the pay-per-view boxing, what do you think a Floyd Mayweather versus KSI fight would look like?
Man, that probably would be incredible. It probably would.
Well, you get the UK too.
Incredible.
Right. Well, he commands all the UK base.
Yeah.
No, it would be a great fight.
Yeah, I actually like KSI. He's actually a nice guy.
He's been in the gym with you a few times, and he's a big fan of everything that you're doing also, and he's been into a couple of the Mayweather Promotions fights there locally in Vegas, and he's a big fan of Floyd's also, and they're a great group of guys that we work with, and we've worked together with them on a couple of projects, so they're good people. I think that would be a great, and that's an in-house fight. that we could
work
on.
It certainly. Listen, you never know.
You never know. You never
Anything
know.
is
If
possible.
Leonard Ellerbe says you never know, that means he's already working on it. Okay, we'll move on, Leonard. I'm not going to hold you to that. Let's move on to the Jake Paul situation. That's a fiery subject. He's fighting Tommy Fury coming up. Before we talk about the thoughts on that fight, what do you think of the whole Jake Paul movement?
Well, I don't have any problems at all with it, because anytime a guy goes out there and he busts his behind and he is creative and he thinks outside the box. So I'm a big fan of that. And what Jake Paul has shown a lot of these fighters is that you guys are kind of lazy. You don't want to get out there and hustle and market yourself and find different ways to think outside the box. And he's not a guy that is coming in the sport who had a big amateur background, but he's found a way to be creative and have a tremendous amount of success in such a short period of time. But what I will commend him on, he's an extremely hard worker.
Yep.
I know people firsthand who are in his camp, and he works very, very hard. So again, kudos to him for all the success that he's had thus far in the sport. He's been able to bring more eyeballs to the sport. And again, I'm not mad at it.
Yeah. And one of my business, practices, and one of the things that I abide by is you surround yourself with your weaknesses. And he surrounded himself with people that knew the sport. He's got Mayweather promotion stablemate J. Leon Love in camp with him, who's been around Floyd for a long time. So he's pretty much learning, that he's expediting his education in the sport by bringing guys like that around him. And he's got the right guys around him where he's learning the sport fast. And financially, he's able to do that because of what he's built in social media. So I agree with you. Now, mind you, we were Team KSI in the beginning, and I was so anti any of the Pauls, but I have become a fan. I really have.
Let's not forget. I mean, he knocked out a former MMA champion. He's not.
Don't get carried away.
He's not fighting.
Don't get carried away.
I mean, he fought 2 UFC guys.
Stop it. The Ben Askren thing you're really going to put in as a
Anderson Silva beat homeboy.
Who's homeboy? Vitor?
Chavez.
No. You can't put Chavez in that. Come on, Chavez. Please. Chavez, washed up Chavez.
Saying, not only does he market himself, but he's won.
He has, and you got to attribute that to the hard work that he's put in there. Well, we got a big fight coming up. Rolando Romero, Gervonta Davis. It's going to be a phenomenal fight.
You got tons of fights. You got Porter, Spence. Who you got in that fight?
Me?
Yeah.
Porter and Crawford.
Porter Crawford, sorry.
That should be a tremendous fight. He's fighting a tremendous fighter in Crawford who fights with a different style. He's a switch hitter. So I think it's a difficult fight for both guys. I think the fans are winners in this because you get 2 guys that I think that I know that's going to bring it. And it's a very interesting matchup. It should be a great fight. I'm looking forward to it.
Agreed. Leonard, we appreciate you coming on OSPtv. Thank you very much for all your support for everything that we do. Looking forward to have you at our next conference or in studio for the next one.
Yeah, I would love to.
Thank you,
love to.
I appreciate that very much. Guys, we are signing off episode 12 with the one and only Leonard Ellerbe. OG, that's a wrap, brother.
That's a wrap.
My team, my family, my OSP, and we're out.